Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lighted Window Congregational Church. It's good to see you this morning. We've got several announcements about a lot of fun stuff coming up in the next few weeks. And so, as Christina heads to a microphone, I want to let you know that Pride in the Park is happening on Saturday at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. here, not only at Memorial Park, but also in our courtyard. We're going to have in the courtyard a bakery and a matcha place and jewelry and ceramics and plants and all sorts of things. Flint Ridge Books will be here as well, selling books from LGBTQ authors and children's books as well. Then across the street, we're going to have a petting zoo and bubble stuff and live music, lots of special things. And so it's worth coming. We're also going to be having our tote bags. We've got 100 of these that we've got made up with our theme this year. Belonging is beautiful. And so those are free for you to carry all your swag in, t-shirts and all sorts of stuff. So I want to make sure that you're able to come. And not only do we have a lot of fun for you to do, but there's also ways for you can volunteer. So see Sophie. We're looking for people to volunteer in about 1-hour shifts at the church booth, just to greet people, have some fun, listen to the good music. We're also doing a pup culture puppy rescue. So if you've just been wanting to adopt a dog, you could do that out there. You should come. Even if you don't want to adopt it, they'll let you pet them. And if you have a dog at home, we're doing our doggy drag race as well. So dress your puppies up, and we've got prizes for the ones that dress. I know Mallory's dog is going to be there. Yeah. So Mallory has an announcement as well.
Good morning, everybody. So, next week, Sunday, of course, we have our June concert with the Lanternmen. We have Roses in June. And it's going to be super different from what we usually do. It's going to be all the classics from the 1940s, 20s. Yeah, 20s, 30s, and 40s. So please come. It's going to be very fun. Christina and I and her husband went through the archives there and chose the music. We spent time, so I really hope to see you there.
So the technical details for that is it is a free concert, but you do need to reserve a ticket. So there's a QR code here you can scan, and you can reserve the ticket there. A couple things to point out, too, is that it is in the Lanternman Ballroom, so you do have to access it by a flight of stairs. So just keep that in mind if you want to come. You do have to get up the stairs. And thirdly, if you would like to hang out here and have lunch before going over, that the church will provide a lunch. It would be great if you could RSVP for that. Again, tell Sophie, there she is in the back, that you'd like to stay for lunch, and then you can join us at 1 p.m. across the street.
And then since Pride Month begins tomorrow, you may have noticed on your way in that we do have some yard signs out in the courtyard. If you'd like to take a yard sign home and put it out in front of your house, you are welcome to take one. That's something that the church has been providing for the last few years, and so we've got a set of those. You can also get some at Pride in the Park. And then the last thing I want to mention is that starting next week, we will have a card available to say see you later to Jacob Walters. He's going to be taking a leave of absence beginning June 14th to go be in Tucson with his fiancée, and so it is joyful for him, painful for us. And so not only will we have a card where you can write lovely things in, but you might also want to leave some stuff inside that card as he is going to be there. He'll be there till the end of the year. And so, to help him have that kind of new beginning to do that. So we'll obviously miss Jacob in that time, but we'll hope he'll come back to us. So we have the beginning of a new sermon series and some new thoughts as we move into the summer. And it's all about beginnings and new beginnings as we try to figure out where we stand in this world and as we face all of the different frustrations and complications that can get thrown at us. Sometimes by going back to the beginning, we find a new way of living. And so we are reminded that our beginnings are in God's hands in Psalm chapter 8. The psalmist writes, "O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. When I look at your heavens and the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, I wonder, what are humans that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them?" And so I'd like you to take some time as we begin our worship this morning, find someone nearby and answer this question, have a conversation. How does the diversity of creation, particularly the diversity of human creation, reflect the image of God to you? How do you see God in other people? And so take some time and share that with other people. And as you find your way back to your seat, I'll invite our choir forward as they help us to reflect on how God has put God's image upon all of creation and particularly on the humans that God has created. And so as we reflect, I invite you to consider once more how that image of God not only rests in those around us, but it also rests in you.
In the beginning, God shaped and formed me. I am skillfully and wonderfully made. I am the image of my Creator. In every part of me, His likeness is displayed. Life flows from life and love from loving, gifts of the Father by nature and by grace. A heart made glad, a soul unshaken, unbounded joy in every breath, a song of praise. Unbounded joy in every breath, a song of praise.
For His own
For His own
purpose,
God shaped and formed me.
His I have a place within
I know you like Legos, right? What's the biggest Lego you've put together? Your cat, maybe? Don't you have a cat Lego? Yeah. I love putting Legos together. This is one of my favorite ones I have. This is the DeLorean from Back to the Future. There's always times when you're putting together a Lego, you're like, I wonder why they made it like that. What are they doing here? And then as you get going, you're like, oh, I see. This thing, if you push the button, the flux capacitor lights up. That's neat. Or, oh, if you push this, the wheels flip sideways so it can fly. Those little things that the designer of the Lego put in so that the same kind of oh cool moment they had in designing it would be discovered by the people who were then building it later on. And so today I'm going to be talking about Genesis 1 and how God creates. There's also some times when God puts things into creation that really don't need to be there, but are things that when we notice them, we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. In fact, after I built this one, I was like, hey, kids, come see what this thing does. And so what I really hope we can do as we discover all the different ways that God has added beauty and joy and surprises in the world, then not only do we say, oh, wow, that's neat, that's so cool, but that we would even find other people to share it with, sunsets and other people, music and songs and all the talents that we have. Because just as God is creator, because we bear the image of God, we too are called to create, to make things. And so some of us are really good at making good grades or making music or poetry or friendships. And all those ways are ways that God has blessed us to be a blessing in the world, not because it has to happen in order for the world to keep moving on like a machine, but instead because it simply brings us joy. And so it's important that as we connect with God as our creator, as we bear God's image, that we would find joy in those little things that make us say, oh, neat. I'd like you to sing with us about the way that God's creation comes to us and that we find that connection with who God is and who we are. You'll find our first hymn in your worship guide, Mothering God, You Give Me Birth. Once more, using this concept of creation to imagine God as the one who allows us to flourish in this world. This is based on the writing of Julian of Norwich, a famous Christian mystic who often would connect the ways of God to the ways of love. And so, inspired by her writings, we'll sing all three verses of Mothering God, You Gave Me Birth. I invite you to stand as we sing.
Mothering God, you gave me birth. In love right morning of this world, Creator saw
And so we come to the one who, like a parent, births us into new life, but then also nurtures us, listens to us as we cry out, as we ask for the things that would bring us joy, as we cast our cares upon the one who cares for us. We come to this time of prayer. And I'd like to invite you, as you take a posture of prayer and as you begin to sense the presence of God with us, that maybe you look back over the past week or two to one of those moments where you were surprised at the beauty of creation. Those moments when the presence of God rushes in to remind you of what is good and beautiful and true in this world, the life that has been given. Perhaps we might respond with a simple thank you for that beauty. There are times when we often are also surprised by setback and heartache and grief and doubt, things that we do not bid to come to us but come anyway. And it is often those moments where we find our hearts rushing back to God to ask the questions of why and how long, who can help. And so I invite you to bring those concerns to God as well. As the faithful parent, as our source of life, knowing that God is faithful to hear us and to use all of God's creative force to create space for us, peace for us, comfort for us. And of course, this love is not only for us. This life is not given just for us, but for others. Those that we love as family and friends and neighbors, but also those that we do not know, even those who we sense may be opposed to the things of God. We find in them the image of God as well. And so I invite you to pray for someone as the Spirit of God comes and brings them to mind, whether friend or enemy, known or unknown. You find that Jesus' relationship with God, referring to God as Father, this divine parent in whom he shared love and life. I believe that that relationship is what then modeled this prayer that Jesus taught us, to remind us of our connection to God, whether we feel and notice that connection or not. And so I invite you to pray this prayer with me as an invitation to make space for God in our life, to make room for the way the Spirit might care for us. And so pray with me. You'll find this in your worship guide. Loving God and source of life, in whom is heaven, may your name be known by all creation. May your justice be followed by the peoples of the world. May your will be done by all humanity. May your presence sustain our hope, and may it come to earth. With the bread that we need for today, feed us. In the hurts that we absorb from one another, forgive us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the corrupting power that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen. How many of y'all have played Monopoly before? Yeah. Do you know the rule, how much money you get when you pass go? Anybody? You can yell it out. Yeah, $200, all right. Does anybody know what you have to do to get out of jail? Roll a double. There we go. We got it. Does anyone know how much money each person has to start with? No? Not like the specific denominations where you have to count it out and make sure everybody. So it's one of those things that inevitably you have to go back to the instructions to figure out how to set up the game, right? And I found as I was thinking about the story of creation that in Genesis 1 we find a very similar way that story is written down. It doesn't just kind of fall out of the sky for us, but instead it is written in a context where the people are leaving Babylon from exile. And having had all of these different creation stories, both part of other cultures and within their own, they needed a way to remember what matters most as we head back home. What stories are we going to tell that will influence our children? Questions that maybe after the torture and pain of the past several generations as they were slaves in Babylon might prompt them to ask, does any of this really matter? Does God really care about us at all? What sort of God would allow us to go that way? And now if God is on our side, what must we do to secure a future? All of these questions prompted the people to begin collecting the stories that had sustained them into a sacred text. And so over the next few centuries, stories that had been shared over campfire or written in prophetic speeches or historic annals began to be compiled. And that is how the Hebrew Scriptures were formed. And so over the next several weeks, I want us to read through some of these passages from the book of Genesis, revisiting these early narratives with the idea that having become familiar with naming ourselves as exiles from the wealth and power and elite of today, as we read in 1 Peter over the past few weeks, then now if we are indeed exiles, searching for a way in the margins with those who also suffer, how might we begin to see the world, better ways to frame our present and our future? And so I'd like to read some selections from Genesis chapter 1 and into chapter 2. This is the first of two creation accounts that we find in Genesis. Genesis 1, chapter 1, verses 1 through 5 says, "When God began to create the heavens and the earth was complete chaos, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day." Skipping over some days, now we find ourselves toward the end. Genesis chapter 1, verse 24 through chapter 2, verse 4. "Then God said, 'Let us make humans in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and of the birds of the air and over the cattle and over all the wild animals of the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.' So God created humans in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves upon the earth.' God said, 'See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And every beast of the earth, and every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps of the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food.' And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all of their multitude. On the sixth day, God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created." Now, if you were to keep reading past verse 4 of chapter 2, you would find a very different story of creation. For this one, the remainder of chapter 2, we find that man is created first, and then all of the animals, and then toward the end of that, woman. This is also where we find the setup for the tree of life that has the fruit that they can't eat, and then all of the stuff that happens there. That story, unlike this one in chapter 1, reads a lot like a fable or a fairy tale, something that you could really easily see being told over a campfire night after night. Our text, however, is much more ordered, less on narrative flourish, and reads instead like poetry with repeating phrases and ideas. In fact, if I would have gone through all of it, you would be able to repeat those phrases back to me, where I would say things like, it was evening and then it was morning, the first day, the second day, the third day. We could say things like, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And of course, at the end of every day, and God said, it was good. And this kind of repetitive poetry is meant to counteract the repetitive stories that the people of God had heard. Often our lives are filled with prevailing narratives and counter narratives. And I think this first story that we find in Genesis of creation is a counter narrative, a way to challenge how these exiles thought about the world around them. The Babylonians had a creation account. Most ancient civilizations did. And in all of these stories, they did not seek to explain how the world came to be, but instead why it was the way it was. And so in Babylon, the people of God would hear stories about how also the world opens in chaos. Here, primordial entities of Apsu and Tiamat ruled over the disorder. And they created other beings who were also at war with one another. Eventually, winds would blow across all of this soup of chaos, where eventually the gods would unite against Ea and Ea's champion Marduk. And as these chaotic winds would blow, Marduk eventually went to battle with Tiamat, splitting her in two and creating the earth and the sky. And as the story goes on, humans would be created out of the blood of the gods that would also be killed. And humans would become subject and slaves to the whims of the gods, eventually even slaves to the divine who would create Babylon as a city and the temple of Marduk in its center. And so imagine how hearing that the world began in bloodshed among family members, of chaos and enslavement, born out of the anger and the jealousy of the gods. It would explain so much. Corrupt governments? Well, that makes sense. Yeah, sure. War where innocents die while the powerful are safe? Yeah, that reads okay. Famine and cancer and floods and sibling rivalries and people who don't know how to zipper merge onto a highway? All of that makes sense when we see that the world began with such chaos and violence. But when we begin reading Israel's story of creation, we might hear a counter narrative to what they had grown up with. Sure enough, there is chaos and darkness over the face of the deep, over the domains of the gods like Tiamat. But the winds of God, the breath of God that blows, is not to kill, but to create. Not by blood, but by words. Like, let there be light. Not even a command from God, but more of an invitation. And then God saw that the light was good. And so in this story, what we find is that God begins in 3 days of separating, of making room, of separating light from dark, separating sky from water, and then earth from sea. And after those 3 days of stretching creation out so there is room, God begins to fill that creation in all of those spaces. First, stars in the sky that was created, and then the sun to light our day, creatures to swim and to fly, and then filling the land on the final day of creation, not only with the creeping things and the animals, but also us. And each day, we are told that God was pleased with how the invitation was received. Some people will read this story and find humans given such an important place in the grand scheme of things and decide that we should pillage the land for its resources, build wealth, and if the climate suffers, it must be God's will. Some will read it and find it silly that ancient people didn't consider the universe-spanning scale of billions of years, 6 days, as a joke. They must be dummies, and dismiss the whole story as nonsense. Some will say that it was not divine love that made the world, but instead random chance. And any grasp at meaning is just us trying to make up stories to help us sleep at night. And I guess that, like the Babylonian story, each of the ways we imagine how the world was started is probably right. Each of the meanings that we place upon all of the narratives that we have come to hear, we probably are correct in reading the world that way. Each origin story shapes how we live in the present, how we might imagine the future. And so it's important for us to see how our scriptures have sought to inform us, not as a way of explaining away the Big Bang or saying, yeah, dinosaurs and humans walked around together or any of that, but instead of maybe imagining that rather than the world being simply random, or even worse, violent and evil, that we might say underneath all that we know, God said it was good. In the story presented in Genesis, we find God bringing order to chaos. Again, not through the force of God's will, but instead through an invitation given to the chaos. Let there be. It's a partnership with creation. That God invites creation to play along, to build with God. It's not a detachment from creation where God just sets the thing spinning and then walks off to another room. Nor is it an iron-fisted rule where everything is meted out by how God works. Instead, what we find is God makes room and then fills it with vibrant and diverse life, and makes more room and does the same. And so I want us to read this passage and consider that being one of the very ways that God is in the world, making space for something new, and then giving it room to take root and find new life. Maybe over millennia and eons and centuries and billions of years of making room and giving new life. So after the exile, Israel runs into and finds itself in the middle of all of these world powers. They knew what it was like to be under the thumb of Egypt and escaping in the Exodus and finding themselves in the promised land. And then they encounter Assyria and Babylon, and after that, Persia and the Greeks. And each of these world powers found their center of worship in their capital city, an amassing of power, not of just military might, but of religious and spiritual significance. But Jerusalem was destroyed. And that does something to your theology, not just your military capabilities or your financial security, but your theology. The temple, too, with it, completely destroyed when the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem and took the people off in chains. As far as they could tell, their God was toppled. And so now that we're going back, is that God going to be there waiting for us? How are we to navigate ourselves in a land where all these other gods, like Marduk, seemingly could defeat the God of Yahweh? They had walked the streets of Babylon and seen statues of Marduk everywhere they looked, depictions of its gods, images cast in stone and set in its temple. They knew who was the most powerful. And so where could their God be in the midst of all of that? We often run into the same questions. Not that we see different statues of different gods around, but it can often be that as we look around, we find we feel powerless. That even our faith feels insufficient to face whatever we have to face today or tomorrow. And so I find it intriguing in a reading of Genesis 1 that some scholars see it in its ordered and measured way of presenting how God would go about building, that it's like the building of a temple, just like the ones that they would have in Athens or Babylon or Nineveh. Only here, instead of locating the temple in a city or even a nation, God's temple is all of creation. And the final act of any good temple project is to place the image of that God in the middle of the temple, so that wherever people would look and they see that image, they would know, oh, this is who this belongs to. Only God decided to put God's image not cast in stone, but instead flesh and blood. And not just in one place, but in every place. So that no matter where we go, we are reminded, well, there's an image of God. Oh, and there's an image of God. And these images don't look the same, and speak the same, and love the same, and even worship the same, and yet there they are. What might that tell us? That it's not a God of the Babylonians or the Assyrians or the Egyptians that we worship, but a God of all peoples, of all creation, of all places, of all everything. And that this God, who's made a temple of all of the cosmos, of all that is seen and unseen in the world, has named that creation as good, including you. So good, in fact, that God's like, I need a day off. A day of rest from that work, and then gifts that day to us as well. It's not just a day for the master to rest while the slaves of humanity go about the work, but instead God invites God's creation to also rest. This is one of those stories that it includes that's why we practice Sabbath. Okay, I get it now. It's a gift for us to enjoy with God. So, my girls have moved out of the house, and when they do come home, I love it. Not even if we're doing anything special, but just having them there, this idea of shared presence. They're just in the room, hanging out, or we're watching TV, or they're on their phone, and we're on our phones, whatever. But just the idea that they're present, and we're just kind of chilling, is meaningful for me. Enjoying life, even in its ordinariness. It's another way that God creates space for us. These moments of rest where we can just relax and enjoy one another's company, where God invites us to enjoy God's company too. We, who are here at least, have made it part of our practice maybe to include this as the way we come to experience God's presence, how we just relax and are reminded that God is a good and loving God and that we are part of that creation. But there are multiple ways for us to experience that. We don't have to wait just for one day a week. We can find moments of rest in all the choices we make. But I want to remind us that creation stories were told to explain why things are. Not how did stuff start in the scientific way, but they were written of explaining why is life the way it is right now. And like those returning from exile, insecure in their hope or unsure of their future, we often need reminding that underneath all of our fear, all of our grief, all of our doubt, all of the chaotic winds that blow and push us out into troubled waters of unknown depths, that the creative invitation of God invites us to see all that has been made as good and true and beautiful. And so my hope is that in knowing that, we would know God's presence with us and say that it is good. Amen.
For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around
And so what we find is every day is a day for us to receive the gifts of God's beautiful creation, including rest. And so I invite you to stand with me and sing of this day of radiant gladness, of the days where we recognize God's creation with us. You'll find this hymn inserted in your worship guide. We'll sing all 4 verses of O Day of Radiant Gladness as we stand and sing.
O day of radiant gladness, O day of joy and light, O balm of care and sadness, most beautiful, most bright. This day the high and lowly through ages joined in tune, sing holy, holy, holy to the great God triune. This day at thy creation, the light first had its birth. This day for our salvation, Christ rose from depths of earth. This day our God victorious, the Spirit sent from heaven, and thus this day most glorious, a triple light was dim. This day God's people meeting, the Holy Scripture hear, Christ's living presence greeting, through bread and cup made here. We journey on believing, renewed with heavenly might, from grace for grace receiving, on this blessed day of light. That light our hope sustaining, upon the pilgrim way, at length our rest attaining, our endless Sabbath day. We sing to you our praises, our hope, our joy, our sun. The church its voice of praises, to you blessed three in one.
You may be seated. My hope is this week, as a new month and a new season begins for us, that we might find those surprising times in creation where we sense that God maybe put us in that place at that time just for our pleasure, just so that we might see God's love erupt around us, and that in seeing it, it might be something worth sharing. And so may we find the joy and love of hope of God in us, and that as we witness God's beautiful creation, we carry such peace through us into the world around us. Amen.